We have all battled different forms of trauma. Today's guest has experienced a home invasion, rape, abuse. She has never given up. She is here to share her story because she knows it will help you on your mental health journey. This week's guest is a trauma expert who is also a single mother who runs 3 companies. We are going to learn about her trauma, how she recovered, tools for success, and so much more. She does so much and has still found ways to stay mentally healthy, and she has a passion for sharing how. Before I bring her on today, let's find out how she podcasts. Shellie, which platform do you stream your shows through?
Well, yours right now. I love it.
I appreciate your support already. We just recently met through Elizabeth Frederick. Thank you for that. I think there's going to be some nice collaborations with Shellie and I in the mental health world. When you're listening to other podcasts, Shellie, when in the day do you find yourself tuning in?
Usually when I need to have a little inspiration and kind of get out of my own thoughts. So as I feel drawn to it.
I like that. Making time for it as it comes across. Always make sure you can find a way to get some value. If not this podcast, there are a lot of great ones out there to level up your mindset. Where do you find yourself listening to these shows? In the car, and a headset?
A lot of times I will take time out and I have a sitting area that I think is very important for everybody to have, that I call my little sacred corner. Mm-hmm. And everything in that corner has a good memory attached to it. And I purposefully did it that way. And so, I definitely make time, even beyond feeling, like if I feel ungrounded, then I will use it to feel grounded. But I purposely make time several times a week for me to have my time. And that's where I learn or I grow or I gain knowledge, and I just sit and I listen. Or sometimes I read. Sometimes I put on classical music and I just read to it.
Self-reflection is so key. I'm glad you brought that up. You have to take time to look at what you're doing, find out how to improve and move forward. As far as classical music, it's funny you say that. When I wrote my first book, Left for Dead, Mozart was my go-to music. It just got my brain juice going and flowing. So I resonate with you there. Thank you for sharing how you podcast, Shellie. To everyone listening on, welcome and thank you for joining us. It is once again time to talk all things mental health, and this is a mental health break. I am your host and author of the books Mental Health Week and Mr. Lancey Talks Mental Health, Vincent A. Lancey. You can learn more about me at Vincent A. Lancey across all social media, YouTube, or my website, vincentalancey.com. Both of those books are on Amazon. If it's your first time sitting down with us, each episode get joined by a mental health advocate from all over the world. We all have a different why relating to mental health. We are going to learn Shellie's in just a bit. I began focusing on mental health after suffering a traumatic brain injury. Before I bring her on, I would like to share that this episode is brought to you by Tampa Counseling and Wellness, dedicated to helping individuals looking to positively transform their lives through compassionate counseling and wellness coaching. If you struggle with depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues, call today for a free consultation. Tampa Counseling and Wellness, therapy that inspires change, and their info is in this show description. Just scroll down. This week's guest is a great example of you don't need to have everything together in order to become successful. I gave you a preview. She's a trauma expert. We'll learn what that trauma is. But professionally, she is a global entrepreneur, business strategist, international motivational speaker, as I mentioned, trauma expert, author of 4 books. You'll check her out on Writing with Authors soon, and a TV executive producer. Being a mother while also running 3 companies can be extremely draining, but Shellie has found ways to succeed professionally while staying mentally healthy. In addition to her trauma expertise, we have a great episode ahead. Shellie Hunt, thank you so much for joining our community on this podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's such an important subject for so many people. I mean, and whether it was just life itself or COVID, or, we're stuck in houses together, we're stuck in houses by ourselves.
Yeah.
I think this is a great subject topic. So thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. Everyone's story is different. You never know which part of someone's story is going to resonate with you most. It may be from where Shellie's from today. It may be that she's a mother, she's a business owner, or the trauma she went through. Stay tuned for a value-filled episode, because that's what Shellie does. Would you mind introducing yourself, Shellie, to our audience, a bit on the personal side before we talk mental health?
Sure. My name is Shellie Hunt. And you covered, I'm a single mom. I own multiple companies. But I have had many things that have happened in my life. I could start with, I was, as a child, raised in the East Coast near Boston, in the outskirts of Boston, literally under a house, one pair of shoes at a time. A lot of love, but very little. And have had many things happen in my life that could have stopped me from moving forward in my life in many ways. Whether it was the choice of being pregnant and choosing to be a single mom and ending up adopting two more without a partner, without a husband, or I have faced everything from home invasions to rapes to domestic violence, and I'm very open about the things that I have faced. And what I have found is any one of those things could have stopped me from me being and enjoying my life. And, I think it's very important as things come in. What I learned was, instead of having things stop me, it was a gift. And people go, well, how the heck is a home invasion a gift? I was literally held for 12 hours. I was tortured. There was a lot that went with it. And this was many years ago, but it's why I went into trauma therapy and why I wanted to work with individuals, because it didn't stop me. Now, did it pause me in my tracks? Absolutely. And was there a choice on what I was going to do with it? Absolutely. And, so many times I could have held that baggage and carried somebody else's dysfunction with me. And instead I went, this is spawning me to help others. This is, it's one thing to have sympathy. It's another thing to have empathy. And empathy meaning I've lived through it and I have been through it and I've come out the other side. And those are the people, when you have this kind of stuff happen to you, you want to talk to people that have come out the other side.
Yes.
Because everybody can give advice.
Mm-hmm.
And, hey, I appreciate the advice, but if you've never been in those shoes, then it's kind of judgmental versus, I survived this and this is what worked for me. And then you can either take it or not take it. It's a different come from. And so, I really sought out being able to help others and serve others. And as a matter of fact, it was like one of the worst things that happened in my life, but it changed the course of my life.
Yes.
It changed the course of the work I was doing with individuals. And, I know a lot about human latent programming. And I know a lot about how our memory attaches to things, because we have like this incredible computer in our brain. And being able to really live our lives, how we choose to live our lives, there are things that we can do to be able to assist that, instead of I'm living my life in the confines of outside circumstances and letting outside circumstances dictate my life. And I just kind of took the reins of my life, and I love showing people about what is possible. At one point, one of my best friends, and I know I brought it up before, but it's Les Brown. And he said to me, I know everything you've been through. And there's this perseverance. And he goes, if you were going to write a book, I'd want you to write a book on perseverance, because these things have happened to you and yet you kept getting back up. And I think it's one, how we are to ourselves. First, I was very kind to myself. I didn't blame myself for what happened. I was kind to myself and allowed myself the space to heal. And it's very important that you allow yourself that space. And then also being able to step back from whatever event it is or whatever, trauma or whatever it is that has happened, to be able to step back and start to look at it as an overview. Because every time I lived in it, I was re-traumatizing myself, reanalyzing it. And trauma starts with a thought, and then it moves to your body and you feel it here. Well, I feel it here. Some people feel it here. Some people feel it here. Wherever you feel it in your body, you feel it, and be aware of that. And then being able to go, wait a minute, let me step back and let me look at the overview of this in a bigger picture. Let me see, what are the gifts in this? And that's why it's important to heal first, because when you're in the healing process, especially in the beginning of a healing process, it's really hard to see a gift. You're like, this is a mess. Okay. I'm like a cat on a hot tin roof. I'm feeling like I have PTSD, like this is horrible. What is this? So when we're in it and we're analyzing it, it's a different place to be. So once you get through and allow yourself some of that, and you start going, wait a minute, maybe, I've been raped multiple times. Maybe that wasn't about me. It has nothing to do with the way I was dressed. It has nothing to do with, maybe what I said or anything. It's, and especially as a woman, I have to say that. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
Because we get blamed a lot. Well, maybe if you didn't wear that dress. No, this is somebody else's dysfunction. And do I want to carry that with me? Do I want it to affect, how I am? And that affects, of course, my business, and that affects my life, and that affects my kids, and that affects my happiness. So I really went on this journey to go, I'm handing the baggage back.
Yes.
And I really trust that things happen for a reason, even if I don't understand the reason at the time. And sometimes years later, I did understand the reasoning to a degree, maybe not of their actions, but I understood the reasoning of certain events in my life where I stood back and I went, okay, so what can I do with this? What is the gift in this? The gift in this, I'll take my daughter's father. My biological daughter, I adopted two more, but my biological daughter's father was domestically violent. And I said, well, what is the gift in this? I had never dealt with this in my family before. Nobody around me knew what the heck this was. And one of the things that I learned was how strong I am. The actually acknowledging my strength through going through it, through living through it, to standing for it, against it, to going, wait, these are my boundaries. This is who I am. And I got to a point where I go, this is my rock, and here is where I stand. And the world will adjust. And it was a gift. At one point I said to him, I just want to thank you. And my daughter said, what? You want to thank him? I don't understand. And I said, I learned how strong I am. So no, a diamond isn't made by just sitting on the ground. A diamond is made because of heat and because of pressure and intense pressure. And so knowing that part of me was being groomed into a diamond, which I learned later on, it was very true. It was very true. And I also looked to others that had gotten through it and not just survived, but thrived. And that's really important, because we can find excuses. Excuse me, I had this, I had that, I can't do, I can be a victim to anything. That's easy.
Yep.
And then, when you're a victim, it's easy to find other victims to justify why you're in this position. Instead of, let me find other individuals that have had home invasions. Let me find other individuals that have been through domestic violence. Let me find other individuals that thrived on the other side of this, because I want to know, how do you do that? And one of the things I want to give a couple tips if I can.
Yes, please.
Okay, so one of the things that I've learned, and that is when you feel abnormal, do something that's normal for
Yes.
you. And so one of the things that I did every day, even during the pandemic, when I was alone, is I would sit there and I would go to my vanity and I'd put my makeup on. And it was, part of me was like, well, this is kind of stupid because there's nobody here. Why am I doing this? And I'm doing this because it's a normal habit for me. So we
Yes.
are habitual creatures by nature.
Hmm.
And when abnormal things happen, do something for you that's normal. Okay. So maybe it's you get up in the morning and you take your walks, or you do your yoga, or you have your cup of coffee, whatever it is that's normal for you. Do several of those things and start to consciously do it, so that you're starting to move back into your owning your own space.
Yes. Do things you love because that's what you're going to be good at. And when you're good at something, it makes you happy.
That's right. And then the other thing, well, I said be kind to yourself, and that is,
Hmm.
be kind to yourself, and really ask yourself, you know, do I really do I have to own this? Is this my baggage? Well, a lot of times when trauma comes into us, it's probably not. It's either something somebody has said to us that we bought, of how it should, ought, must be, or how we should, ought, must be, or not be, or it's completely off the fray. And so being able to have that safety with yourself is important.
Yes.
The other thing is I at that time had seen this thing that Barbara Streisand did. And she had this room, and it was like her sacred space. And so I was like, well, what is that? And everything in this room had a positive mental and emotional connotation to it, to her specifically. Didn't matter if it mattered to anybody else. It didn't have to have a positive saying. It could be something like this that's on my desk
Mm.
that has a positive trigger for me. And so I literally created a space in my house, in this corner of my house. It doesn't have to be a whole room, that everything that is around me in that space has a positive reference, has a for me. And so I literally created like this little safety zone for me.
Mhm.
What I learned and what I know about human latent programming is, like I said, this is an incredible computer. So when I had my home invasion, everything that was around me, or whether it was the color of these guys' shirts or it was whatever, became a trigger, an instant trigger, whether we pay attention to it or not. And so, some of it I didn't even realize. Some is just kind of below the surface, and we don't even know why we don't like it.
Very, very true.
And so being able to go, hey, here's my trigger points, and then being able to do that almost in reverse, and going, I'm going to create this safe space for me, that everywhere I look, there's something that is happy to me or makes me happy. And so that is a big um uh thing for me.
Well, it's an important thing that you share that, to know your triggers and recognize your triggers. They are there either way, one way or the other. Recognize it so you don't let it define you. You can define it. She touched on, in my notes I had, you talked about being kind to yourself. You cannot possibly be kind to anyone else if you are not kind to yourself first. Take care of yourself. Make sure you're in the position to give that good advice, but you have to give yourself that good advice first. And I resonate with you said, the life-changing event, how it wasn't a good thing. I mean, I was hit by a driver and left for dead in the middle of the road at night, of course, how would that be good? But my life trajectory, what I'm doing now, is a lot different. I would have been in the rat race, if you will, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But right now, what I'm doing, this company is going on 8 years, and the hardest years I know are the first 10 years of running a company and all of this. And now we've evolved with the 4 shows and the 4 books, even niche down more to mental health specifically, where I had entrepreneurship and mental health. And I think, which one am I really going to go after? They're both, I have the 2 podcasts, but without mental health, entrepreneurship is impossible. If my mental health isn't in a good place, nothing else is possible. So I really learned to think of it that way, do things that make me happy. I'm my office right here. Across from me, I have a picture of my family. To the right, I have a picture of my 12-year-old team when we went to Williamsport, the Little League World Series. We lost, but we were in that tournament. Things that make me happy are right in front of you. So thank you for pointing that out. We learned some tips to improve our mental health from you in there as well. We know what led you to start speaking about your mental health. What kind of mental health disparities did you face, whether it be anxiety disorders, mood disorders, or schizophrenia disorders?
I think it was definitely, well, I know I had PTSD,
Hmm.
because I was like a cat on a hot tin roof, especially after the home invasion. Is I definitely, if you came up behind me and even touched my shoulder, I'd jump.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh my gosh. Um, and I know it probably would have been easy for me to head into depression. Um, and I'm usually an optimist. And that, so for me, that was really out of character. Um, but I think those two things, like recognizing and being kind to myself and going, okay, I have to be gentle with myself. And then also looking at the future. When I started to look at the overview,
Yes.
step back and
Hmm.
actually step out of the trauma of it and step back and look at the overview. Which I know it seems like it's not like I'm disconnecting from myself, but literally it's almost like looking at it as a third person point of view and
Yes.
going, let me really look at this, and going, okay, so what did I gain? I survived this.
Mm.
I
Yes.
realized that, there were other people that had faced these things. I realized that, there was just so much to it, that I looked at the gifts in it. And I have to tell you, that didn't happen right away. It didn't happen right away. It took a while to de-escalate from PTSD. And it took a while to go, wait a minute, let me really be grounded in me again. So I would definitely say those were some of the biggest things that were
Thank
on
you
my.
for sharing that. I mean, your story is definitely going to resonate with so many people because of your willingness to be honest and share the things that you mentioned in the beginning. We can't change the things that happen to us, but what we can do is share our stories because it may help someone along their way. When I had my traumatic brain injury, it was a severe one. In the beginning, it was very scary in a lot of ways. And the doctors told myself and my parents of what should happen, what may happen. But if I actually spoke with more people who had suffered a traumatic brain injury, things would have helped. It would have gone a lot faster, a lot less uncertainty, which causes mental health difficulties because uncertainty is scary. We all want to know, but through entrepreneurship, I've learned that most things are going to be uncertain in this career choice. So I have to stay focused. But thank you for sharing that. What do you plan on doing to raise awareness for the importance of mental health in the future, Shellie?
And that, you really touched on it. That is share my story.
Mm-hmm.
So many people look at me now and they go, oh yeah, you've had it easy, you've had this, you've had that. And I'm like, this hasn't been easy. This has not been easy. This journey has not been a cakewalk. Okay. But, having looked at or dealt with, I should say, or lived through, thrived instead of just survived rape, domestic violence, home invasions, the whole thing. It's talking about it and letting others know you can get through this and that you can get through this even bigger than you are. And the hard part is when you're in the middle of it. It really is. And you're trying to deal with the feelings and the fears or the anxiety or whatever it is that comes with it, and being able to share your story, and go, she survived all that. I think I can survive this.
Yes, thrive, not survive. That's what she said. There's no reason just to survive because you're letting the situation define you. Go out there and make the most of it. Shellie's doing great work. You can find more about her on that entrepreneur show. Like I said, we're going to have writing with authors, but today she is sharing her mental health story because she's been through a lot, but she knows her story can help others. You know what time it is if it's not your first episode, but if it is time for the Spotlight Story. Each week with my guest, we sit down and discuss the mental health journey of someone famous because I want to let you, the listeners, know you are not alone. I want you to understand no matter how much money or healthy someone looks on the outside, they may not be on the inside too. And for today, we're going to talk about the story of Ellen Degeneres. And as I've done so many episodes, I'm surprised I have not done this story, but I can't think of a better guest to go through it with. She's made headlines in her decision to end her show after the 19th season, says the depression she faces can take a toll on her ability to host it. The comedian says it can be challenging to get in the zone and host on days where she's not really happy. I wanted to add some quotes to hopefully resonate with some of you. And when I come out here, it's not like I have to fake it. And so for that 1 hour, if we do 2 shows, 2 hours, I'm able to do that because I'm a performer. And it's easy for me to turn that on. She said, sometimes, though, depression was really hard and rears its ugly head, as the article puts it. Quote, what's not easy for me is to turn it on when I feel sad inside. That's a depression. That's where I'm in myself. I'm not good when I'm going through a bout of depression or anxiety or whatever. But yeah, I can do this. But like I said, I also have other emotions. Shellie, what do you take away from this article, her being a performer and still having had these feelings?
I think we do that. I think even if you're not Ellen and you're at home with your children, or you're walking into the office, I think that we do that. And I think we're trained to do that. I really do. I think we got trained in school, in public schools or wherever, we come in and we're like, okay, here we are. And I think that I love that she was so honest about it. Actually, I have to say that she's so honest and upfront about what's going on, in her life. But that's how I feel about it. I think that, we're trained to do that, and it's okay to be honest about things. People walk down the street all the time and they go, "How are you?" "Fine." And nobody, I love going when people go, "How are you?" and I'm not good. I go, "Not good." Right? Because it's like this trained response. I'm fine, but you're not fine. So be honest about where you're at, because the minute that we're honest where we're at, we can address it.
People ask and don't even really want to hear the answer. They just ask because, like you said, it's a trained response, trained answer. Thank you for putting that, everyone out there. It is okay to have feelings and emotions. We all have them. We all go through them. That is a part of life. Don't hide it, or you're just hiding yourself. And why waste time on this earth? Shellie, thank you so much for that analysis. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I really enjoyed how you stressed self-reflection in the beginning. You looked at the gifts out of the bad situation. And that's a testament to anyone going through anything, not just what she went through. You can take the situation, not let the situation take you. Would you mind now telling everyone where they can find you?
You can find me at thewomenofglobalchange.com or Shellie, Shellie Hunt on Facebook. Or you can just look me up on the web. You'll find me. And, I just wanted to add one more thing if I can.
Please, yes.
You're not alone. Whoever's watching this, you're not alone. There are others that have had things happen, and just know you're not alone. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for sharing that. Everyone, we can't say it enough. Whatever you're going through, there has been someone else who has gone something similar. It may not be exact, but if they can give you just one piece of advice, we've all been through something. If you're old enough to listen to this podcast, You've been through something in your life where you've rebounded, you found a way to get up again. You can do it again. Don't think you can't. Let's now ask you for your last word, Shellie. What's the last thing you want to leave off for this great episode?
I was going to say you're not alone, but that's okay. I think, no, I'm going to stay with that.
Stay with it.
Alone. And, search for others that aren't going to commiserate with you, but that have thrived. And ask them, how did you do it?
Learn from them. Yes.
Through this. Share 2 things with me. Maybe it's just they journaled. Maybe whatever it is, please just share it with me.
Thank you for sharing that. Everyone, be sure to reach out to Shellie. You found out where to find her. You can find us at A Mental Health Break on all social media, except for Twitter because of the character limit. We are at Podcasts by Lancey, and you get updates from all 4 shows there. I am at Vincent A. Lancey on all social media, YouTube, and my website is vincentalancey.com. As I mentioned, Mental Health Week just came out, and Mr. Lancey Talks Mental Health. They're both available on Amazon, so you can get them tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week on A Mental Health Break. Shellie, thank you for stopping by.